It's honestly getting sickening, seeing influencer after influencer being exposed as a predator every other week. Not even 3 weeks ago, we had the infamous downfall of Dr. Disrespect because of allegations of conversing with a minor, and we all saw how tragic that was, as Dr. Disrespect could do nothing but watch his entire empire burn to the ground. Now, we have Kris Tyson, who some of you may know from MrBeast's videos. Pages and pages of illicit screenshots are being released, exposing the disgusting conversations she was having with an individual much younger and below the age of consent. But it doesn't end there. People are curious, angry, shocked. Did MrBeast know? Did anything illegal actually occur? Does the rabbit hole really go deeper? Let's find out. From what we've seen on the internet for the past year or two, the MrBeast team hasn't been shy of criticism from social media, but more specifically, Kris Tyson. But it wasn't always like this. During Kris's early years of content creation, where she was a key part of the MrBeast team, things almost seemed perfect. She was one of the most liked characters, dare I say, a fan favorite. But things took a huge turn in 2023 when Kris came out as transgender during an interview with Anthony Padilla. And unsurprisingly, the internet being the internet, Kris got some love for this, but also faced heavy criticisms, being hated by a large number of people. In my opinion, many of the attacks were unprompted, and some would say undeserving. But nonetheless, MrBeast still stuck by him and included him in even more videos, it seemed like. Now, precisely a year later, Kris is facing allegations of inappropriately conversing with a minor on multiple social media sites, with some alleging a deeper conspiracy with both Kris and the entire MrBeast team. To give you some context, there is a 7-year age gap between Kris and the minor whose codename is Lava on Twitter. So when they started interacting, Lava was only 13 and in middle school, and Kris was 20 and in college, which in itself was already weird enough. This whole situation begins to look a lot worse when you consider the fact that this guy was a literal superfan. So there was a clear power dynamic in which the minor at the time is obviously desperate to get closer to Kris. Now, the two met back in 2017 after Lava won a MrBeast competition and was gifted a CSGO knife that was signed by MrBeast himself. But the knife wasn't all he got from this competition. It was shortly after this that he got into contact with Kris Tyson when Kris was 20 and Lava was 13. Things then quickly progressed as their relationship became stronger, but the stronger their relationship was becoming, the more weird and creepy Kris behaved and talked to the minor. And it's honestly pretty crazy just how many quote-unquote out of line tweets there actually are. Like the time Kris referred to Lava as dad in a tweet. Lava was only 14 at the time of this posting, and it's honestly just weird as to why a grown man would call a young child dad. But weird things like this are only the tip of the iceberg as things get a lot more questionable. With Lava tweeting, "Kris, does she know about your addictions?" Which in itself is already weird enough, and brings the question of why the hell does a teenager know these disturbing and intricate details about your weird sexual fantasies? And this also alludes to the possibility that Kris may have been sharing and talking about these illicit topics with Lava privately. Because why else would a minor feel so inclined to talk about these weird things publicly about you? It just doesn't make sense. Now this section is quite a bit longer, being a segment of consecutive tweets that Kris and Lava were having back and forth, in which Kris quote-unquote jokes about releasing nudes to the minor. I mean, I don't know how that's an acceptable joke, but you see the theme that's building. With Kris initiating the conversation by saying, "One more Patreon and I'm releasing my nudes," which could have possibly been some sort of creepy joke, but it only gets weirder because the topic of nudes just doesn't seem to go away for what feels like an eternity. Lava then responds with, "I'm your first Patreon, big boy," which is just weird in itself. I don't know why a random teen feels so comfortable calling someone much older than them big boy. Usually it's because that older person has initiated that weird language, and now the younger individual is reciprocating that same behavior. Lava then posts a screenshot of him donating $1, pretty much showing that he's already adhered to Kris's earlier request of one more Patreon for his nudes to be released. And it's at this point where the conversation should have ended due to its weird nature. But no, instead, Kris eggs him on, saying, "But not $5? Pathetic, JK," with a weird kissy face at the end. Lava then ensures Kris, saying, "Just wait until my Twitch rev comes in." Lava then sends Kris more money, telling him to check again, and Kris replies saying, "Lol, I just saw. Hold up, I got you, dad." Once again calling him dad, which honestly just makes me sick. The evidence would then end when Kris said the worst thing so far, stating that, "I posted some fire nudes for you. Please no share." It's honestly insane. The fact that he thinks having these creepy conversations one-on-one with a minor is completely normal just puzzles me. But for argument's sake, let's just assume that all of these sexual comments and conversations were completely harmless and just jokes. the principle still applies. In no way, shape or form should a 21-year-old man be talking in such a suggestive way to a 14-year-old boy, especially about topics like this, and repeatedly calling him nicknames like dad and big boy. It's disgusting. Why this child is even comfortable talking about these weird things to Kris just brings a whole load of other questions. But the weirdness doesn't just stop there, and if anything gets worse. I guess weird tweets for the public to see just wasn't enough, and Kris just had to pursue this whole thing on another platform. Let's start with Discord. Kris Tyson, the minor in question, and some other supporters of the MrBeast squad were all in a Discord server together and conversed with each other on a regular basis. Things were fine for a few months, until Kris Tyson just couldn't help himself and started acting weird again. He'd send a snap to Lava, who was 15 at the time, saying, "Coming for America," which is honestly just creepy to say the least. I mean, who would send this to someone 7 years younger, let alone the fact that that person is a minor? Lava would then send a screenshot of the snap and post it to the GC, making light of the situation and saying that "I got a weird snap from Kris," in which he follows up with saying, "He's a different man off camera. That's all I can say." Which just shows how innocent yet unaware Lava was. He knows something is off, and what Kris is sending him is creepy, but due to his young age and lack of experience, he just doesn't see anything wrong with it. Kris would then also go on one-on-one calls with Lava, which we can't make any assumptions about due to a lack of knowledge about what was actually said, but I thought I should just include it anyways. And not even a few months after Lava turned 16 and was able to drive, Kris, Carl, and Lava immediately met in real life after 3 years of talking. And to be honest with you, even the details of this link up were sketchy, with people online and a YouTuber by the name of Prism42 saying this.
And of course, the moment he was able to drive, he takes a camper van out in the middle of the woods, which, by the way, very secluded area. Let me talk about that. Anytime that someone is taking a camper van somewhere, bringing it out in the desert or the middle of the woods, it's very unnecessary because there's RV parks, there's the Walmart parking lot, there's plenty of areas you can go instead of going to a place that's very unfamiliar to you to camp out there, especially in a secluded area. So the real question is, if he was talking to Kris Tyson, who is interested in both men and women since he was 13 years old and Kris Tyson was in college, why did he take a camper van out to see him and take it out in the middle of the woods in this secluded area?
The internet went absolutely insane. News articles jumped to cover the drama. Endless videos were uploaded to almost every site giving their opinions on Kris and the situation. Fans and followers also expressed their shock and disappointment, while critics were quick to condemn Ava's actions. The hashtag #CancelAvaKris Tyson started trending almost immediately. Reaction channels, friends of Kris, and MrBeast himself all stood on the podium that was internet drama. I partly believe that the reason this outing blew up so much is that he already had so much hate from people who didn't like the fact that he transitioned, as I mentioned before. Many thought that he added a weird air to the MrBeast team, and he faced scrutiny from many. So him being exposed for something like this just gave those people the golden ticket they were looking for. However, there were also those who were genuinely sick of these powerful creators constantly being outed as weird predators and just wanted all of them to be gone from the internet. However, a weird twist to the drama would soon be added when Lava himself, who is now 20 years old, insisted that the internet was just taking things way out of context and that they were going too far, stating that these videos are massive lies and twisting the truth. I even never did anything wrong and just made a few edgy jokes. I was never exploited or taken advantage of. Now can you do me a favor and comment on all of these videos and tell them to stop spreading lies? But many jumped at his comments with heavy criticism, saying things like, he was sending sexual jokes to a 13-year-old. What more needs to be said? And another mocking him, saying, I was not groomed. I was 13 and edgy inappropriate jokes were said. That's literally grooming. There were hundreds and thousands of these type of comments criticizing how ridiculous this whole situation was and just how clear-cut the evidence is that Kris is guilty. But there was also a common theme with these criticisms. It was the comparison of this situation with the Dr. Disrespect drama that occurred just a short while ago. Not even 3 weeks ago, Dr. Disrespect was outed for engaging in sexual conversations with a fan of his that was a minor. As a result of this, he was banned from multiple streaming platforms like Twitch, lost an insane amount of money from brand deals, was blacklisted from multiple events, and even kicked out of his own gaming company he helped start. So what was so different? Why was Dr. Disrespect crucified but Kris wasn't? If anything, this case was much worse because Kris's foul play lasted for years and years, and he'd even met up with the minor. But if you thought the rabbit hole doesn't get deeper, it absolutely does with this last piece of information. As many people began digging into Kris, a lot of dark things were found, which included Kris's close relationship with a person called Shadman, an artist known for drawing young characters in provocative or downright sexual poses and styles. And in one post, it looked as though Tyson was begging Shadman to draw a 10-year-old anime girl. He even allegedly commissioned and bought one of these paintings, which appeared in the background of a Mr. Beast video, which just put the cherry on top of the cake that was his demise. Everything made sense. All the evidence aligned to a single point, a single coordinate, and it was that Kris was guilty. And if there was truly nothing going on, Kris is just a very weird and twisted individual who shouldn't be trusted. In one of the more recent posts online, Jake Franklin, a former member of the Mr. Beast team, came out with a statement saying, "Jimmy knew," which was a direct reference to Mr. Beast himself, which potentially suggested that Mr. Beast knew what Kris was up to this whole time. But it's kind of vague. What did Jimmy know? If he knew about Kris and Lava, but Lava discredited the claims, what's there to know? But it seems as though we won't get any answers to these questions for a while. And as the situation is now, Ava Kris Tyson made their Twitter private and deleted most of the screenshots, some of which are referred to in this video, in an attempt to reduce any more scrutiny. This was paired along with a formal statement that announced that Ava Kris Tyson was stepping away from the internet and the Mr. Beast production team, all whilst fans and critics await to see what will happen in terms of content creation, and if there will be any legal repercussions.